So I know that many of you practice meditation and that there are many publications of its health benefits, especially during this time of COVID-19. So the purpose of this opening is to bring our attention to the present moment so we can focus on what will be said and done during the meeting. We can do this by using our breathing to calm our mind and to relax our body. You will then be able to use your breathing to bring yourself into the present moment anytime during the meeting. So what I will be doing is I'll be ringing a bell 2 times, and on each ring, what I ask you to do is take a deep breath in, slowly exhale, and then feel the freedom from extraneous thoughts and the relaxing of your body as you bring yourself into the present moment. So let's get ourselves comfortable, and I will start with the first bell. And let us begin.
Thank you, Jerry. That was very calming and very, very good. I also went ahead and started, if you could stop your video so that it's not as distracting for when the other presenters are going, I think that would be great. And don't forget to mute yourself as you are in the meeting. Any questions that you have, please put them in the chat, and we'll be sure to address them as quickly as we can or after the speakers have finished. Willie, would you like to talk next?
Good evening, everybody. Congratulations to the committee, both Keisha and Jerry. And I want to thank everybody for jumping on to this very important subject matter. I am excited about it, excited about anything that has to do with the connection or intersection of health and social justice is very important to the NAACP, and is extremely important to the larger African-American community, because we always seem to overlook that as a significant social justice issue in some cases. And with all that said, in Howard County specifically, there are so many designs that are set up for success in that way. That's why I'm very excited to hear both Ms. Jacky and Ms. Suzanne with changing the lens on this subject matter, because the work they do is so important to guiding not just a discussion, but activism and understanding about where we must stand at this time or any time when we're talking about life, longevity of life, and then access to the resources that are evident. But in most cases, if anybody's been working in this industry, they know that even though you have certain programs, certain options to care and even treatments, one thing that I guess the overseers of it don't do is advance the marketing and outreach so that it can be nestled into the hands of people who really need it. So I think that to begin a conversation about health and connect a conversation about the intersection of social justice and also ethnicity and race is extremely important. So I want to thank everybody for pulling this together. I do want to recognize that we're in the middle of the national convention, right? We usually have the national convention in July, but it's happening right now. It's a virtual setup, and next month is our state convention. So it's a lot going on in the NAACP, and certainly congratulate everybody on pulling this together. So good luck with this this workshop, and I'm going to sit back and listen. So thanks a lot.
Thank you, Willie. That was great. Also, I'm gonna let Jerry go ahead and introduce Quinton. Jerry, are you there?
Okay, so it's my pleasure to introduce Quinton Askew, President and Chief Executive Officer of 211 Maryland. Quinton is a 2011 graduate of Leadership Howard County, and 211 Maryland is the Health, Human Services, and Crisis Line for the state of Maryland. On a personal note, I approached Quinton about participating in this health panel some weeks ago, and I want to thank him for his easy accessibility, his open communications, and his enthusiasm for being with us tonight. Quinton?
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Jerry. Again, I appreciate the opportunity to be able to come and speak with the group. Howard County is definitely near and dear to my heart, and a wonderful opportunity to be able to talk about 211 Maryland and how we've been meeting some of the needs of our residents across the state, as well as in Howard County with COVID. I'm going to just share my screen here with everyone. And again, as Jerry had mentioned, my name is Quinton Askew, President and CEO of 211 Maryland. And for folks who generally may not know, our basic vision here is to ensure everyone in Maryland has access to resources and services they need to thrive. What is interestingly, by law, 211 Maryland is the Health and Human Service resource line for the state. So 211 Maryland has been around for almost close to 20 years now. 211 Maryland has been around. And so we have 4 regional call centers that answer calls on the behalf of 211 Maryland. We also have 2 additional crisis centers that helps us with our crisis line. And one of those call centers is, which is in Howard County, which is known to everyone, which is Grassroots. We are also the Maryland Crisis Line. And so through the Maryland State Behavioral Health Administration, anyone within Maryland, Howard County, in any jurisdiction, if they are in immediate need of crisis support, if they are in need of any mental health support, if they are substance use disorder needs or any services, we have our 211 Press One line in which individuals are connected with mental health and crisis resources 24 hours per day. This resource is also available by text and as well as chat. And so, again, one of our things is utilizing technology to sort of meet folks where they are. For folks who are in crisis, they're able to also connect with us through chat and text services. Today, I just wanted to take a little bit of time just to give folks an understanding what the supports that we do provide throughout the state, but also what does that look like in Howard County, and also help the audience to understand some of the particular resources and services that we have that can definitely help our underserved and minority populations. What a significant piece about 211 Maryland is, in March, we were activated by MEMA and the governor's office to be the statewide number for COVID-related calls. And so what that basically means is that we are sort of the public inquiry line for all non-emergency calls during COVID, in which the governor, during some press conferences, had directed folks to call 211 for any particular service needs, whether it's testing results or other resources. They've been directed to 211. A couple of additional other initiatives that we had statewide that is also used to support our local jurisdictions as well as in Howard County is that because of activation, there are specific resources that are available that may not be known to local jurisdictions. One is the Maryland Department of Health's feeding program. And so we know that Howard County has a wealth of resources, but through 211, folks also have access if they are homebound, if they lack transportation in some communities in which they're not able to get out to access these meals, we can provide a resource for them where meals can be delivered to individuals or to families. We also have set up a texting initiative for individuals throughout the state in order to keep up with the governor's messages in reference to COVID or any other disaster-related information that needs to get out. So anyone in the state of Maryland can text MD Ready to 898-211, and they will be provided periodic information from the governor around COVID related resources and other resources throughout the state. We also know that mental health has played a big part in the pandemic that we're in. We've also set up a texting platform to help folks to receive supportive text messaging and mental health resources and other identified health and human services through text as well. So we have the MD Mind Health texting platform that Marylanders can text MD Mind Health to 898-211. And this provides ongoing supportive text messaging for those folks who have maybe dealing with isolation, disconnect. It will keep them engaged, but also allow them to know where to connect closely in their community for help. Another statewide initiative that is available for individuals in Howard County is through the Department on Aging that works with our senior population, which we know is a population that is a target for COVID. And so what this does is the Maryland Department of Aging has an initiative that supports caregiving service. And so for any of our seniors who are homebound, and they can't get out, in which they need to remain in their homes in order to be safe, the state will provide caregiving support where an individual is able to go to their home to provide them specific services with technology or medication, food delivery, cleaning, any other services that they might need in order to continue to remain in their homes safely. Just the next couple of slides, I just wanted to share a little bit of data of statewide in reference to Howard County. So 201 Maryland serviced over 400,000 folks last year. And of course, there was an increase in calls due to COVID. 12% of our calls statewide identified as individuals who are African-American or minority. As you'll see here from our last fiscal year's numbers, our highest call volume was related to mental health, suicide, and crisis. And so this is the second year in a row that this has been the highest demand in need. And so we know a lot has to do with the pandemic, but also with just the isolation and daily feelings of folks who are suffering throughout the state. 93% of the suicide and crisis calls are within the Southern Maryland jurisdiction. Just to give the group of an idea of the calls we received from Howard County. And so since COVID, just looking through March and July, those folks who reached out to 211, we had about 2,700 individuals that have just reached out for general specific services. And most of those calls are related to COVID, but other housing and shelter and food, which were the top needs. In dealing for housing, specifically folks looking for rental assistance, shelter support, and some calls related to mortgage assistance. How this compared to statewide between March and July, we had over close to 60,000 calls, which the majority of those calls came from sort of Central Maryland, Baltimore City, Baltimore County, and some in Southern Maryland and Prince George's County. But what this looks like for Howard County, for those folks reaching out in Howard County in reference to just specific COVID-related calls between those 4 months. We had a total of 1,300 individuals. The majority of those calls come from the Laurel, Columbia area, for those folks reaching out through 211 for a specific statewide service or for local resources. Out of that 1,300, only under 150 identified as African American who connected with the services or resources that we had. And again, that highest call number is from the Laurel area in Howard County. Looking at the reasons, individuals who have been calling or contacting 211 in Howard County, the most is around general COVID information or other health-related types of assistance around testing and results. The next highest call numbers around rent and mortgage payment assistance within Howard County. But if you break that down for those who have identified as African American, the sort of second highest need was around rent or mortgage and payment assistance. So the top was specific COVID-related assistance, but for those who are identified as African American, we're looking for rent, mortgage, and payment assistance help. As you'll see throughout the state, there was initial peak in calls in the earlier months in March, June, and July, and that has sort of died off as late as July, but then picked back up in some areas. And in reference to testing and food assistance, most of those calls for the individuals who are African American or minority communities came from Columbia, and again in Laurel, just looking for specific testing help or looking for food. And one of the things that we particularly identified is that over time, the total number of calls for food related to the African American community, those numbers declined, but statewide, those numbers increased in other areas in statewide. So, could be several reasons. Howard County just did a great job of connecting folks to resources, or just made a lack of awareness in order to contact us in order to get that particular service. Some of the reasons why we think we definitely want to do a better job of just getting folks an awareness and understanding of connecting with 211, allowing us to help them connect with other resources, again, due to our nature, again, being 24/7, available through text and chat for folks. Our goal throughout the state really is to connect individuals to the local resources. So for someone calling 211, we will still ensure that they are connected to the closest resource in their community, whatever that might be. Also, there are statewide resources that are available that may not be known locally. And so the benefit of calling 211 is that we can connect those folks to the statewide resources that are available due to COVID or other pandemics that may not have necessary local jurisdiction access. And we can also be a support with local organizations such as NAACP or other entities that are looking for data and just want to have an understanding of what the community looks like. What are some understanding and gaps and unmet needs? Because again, Howard County has a wealth of resources, but it's a real opportunity to be able to understand where those specific needs and gaps are, and whether that's an allocation of funding or just other needs for us to be able to provide that support to you. I will stop sharing there. Terry, I know we had a couple of minutes just to show the presentation, and would love to answer any specific questions related to our work and how that is supported in Howard County.
Does anyone have any questions? If you do, you can unmute or you can put it in the chat.
And one of the things, if I could just add, Keisha, I think also one of the, we know there may be sort of a lack of awareness, again, of 211. I know in Howard County, again, there is a wealth of resources, and you have organizations like Grassroots that are able to connect folks to the services. And so we know we need to do sort of a better job of connecting in more of our minority communities. And so we are working very closely with the state to really see how we can begin to pick up our efforts in order to reach our minority communities in order to be able to provide more support of information and awareness of resources. So that is definitely on our radar, where we will be looking to partner with organizations to really be able to get the word out within our minority and underserved communities of the resources that we do have.
I did have a question actually about the suicide rate and how it's going up. Is there anything that, I mean, I know COVID's happening, but is there anything that we could be doing to help more in that situation, that kind of situation?
And so some of the things that we're learning is, again, isolation has been a big part. A lot of our folks who are calling, our largest folks who connect with us for mental health resources are doing this through chat and text. So they're not calling our lines, but they're connecting with individuals online. So that's telling us, some folks are isolated, not necessarily aware, but just looking to be connected. And so, I think really part of that is really looking at ways of how we can, help folks to be more connected, whether it's in community, whether it's connected to organizations to know, those such as ours or grassroots are available. The average age for individuals who are calling for mental health services are between 18 and 24. So it's a very young population. Then it also jumps to ages of 42 to 62. So it's sort of one spectrum to the other. But there's just been more of, I think, a lack of awareness and sort of campaigning to let folks know about, those specific mental health and resources that are available to them in the community.
I had a question.
Yes, go ahead.
So I'm involved with NAMI Maryland. I'm sure you know about NAMI. Yeah. So do you guys coordinate with them some? Because I know they're doing a lot of programs with the state right now.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So that's a great question. So now we recently just started working with Kate.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So we just started working with Kate, and so we will be working on some other campaigns together and getting the word out and partnering. But that just started. We're doing a lot of work with Kate with the COVID Connect through the state for Marylanders. So so we've just really begin to ramp up that partnership because NAMI has been doing the work and they have that great connection in the community. So that has just.
What is NAMI? For everybody else that's in the dark, what is NAMI?
NAMI is the National Alliance on Mental Illness. There's a NAMI. Wow. There's a state NAMI group in all 50 states, actually 49. West Virginia doesn't have one. But Howard County has a local NAMI, very active local NAMI. I also was curious, are you guys connected with the Horizon Foundation at all? Because I know they try to do a lot of stuff in the health area in Howard County.
No, we are not with 211.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, sir.
I have a question. Are you available in is 211 available in other states, or it's just exclusive to Maryland? And how would, if people live in other states, what should they connect to?
Mm-hmm. No, 211 is nationwide. So we are in every state. There is a 211. I'm just thinking. So we are in every state. So individuals can dial 211 from anywhere to be connected.
Thank you.
Quinton, if the NAACP Howard County wanted to plug into the databases, how would we do that? Would we do that through your office, or how would we do that?
Yes, through our offices, to specifically in reference to sort of data and being able to understand what some of the needs are. That would be through me, and we can connect you with our operations, our data operations person who can help provide any data that might be needed. We also, one of the benefits of 211 is that we have this resource statewide database of over 8,000 resources. Most are locally. And so in which we encourage nonprofits and other organizations, folks who are providing services to minority communities to be a part of our database. It's very easy. They can just go to our website, www.211md.org, There's a section for providers. They can add their information in. They can check to see if their information is there. If not, they can add it in, and one of our folks will contact them just to vet it, to make sure the information is correct in order to be a part of our system. Because we're only as good as the information that we have from the local community. And so we really try and partner and make sure that organizations that are providing services for individuals are a part of our database in order to be connected.
Thank you, Quinton.
Are there any other questions? Give it a few seconds if you need to unmute. Okay, thank you so much, Quinton. That was very informative. We're definitely going to be working with you in the future to make sure that we get people the knowledge they need even about this service. I never heard of it until just last month. So this is very good. I'm really impressed with all the work you do and all the calls that you take in and how many people you're able to reach. As we move on in the program, our next group is from Changing Lens. We have Jacky McCoy and Suzanne Haley. I'll give a quick introduction of them. I have their bios here. Jacky McCoy is the co-founder of Changing Lens. She's an educator, a community advocate, workshop facilitator who informs community members, nonprofit, government, and corporate leaders about the history and impact of structural racism in the United States. Through the grassroots organizing, community think tanks, and innovative partnerships, Jacky seeks to heighten awareness, shift perspectives, and inspire lasting change in participants' thought patterns, attitudes, and behaviors. And just as a side note, I took the course just a few weeks ago, and all of those things have happened to me. Everything has changed. After working in education for many years, she could not ignore the achievement and opportunity gaps prevalent among the students. Her quest to understand the factors that contribute to these gaps led her to work at the intersection of race, equity, and justice issues. That didn't work. I'm sorry, I lost my place. Jacky is an executive board member of Youth in Conversation, an advisory board member and workshop trainer for Talk With Me Howard County, an advisor for the annual Youth Peace Conference, and a member of the local Children's Board Equity Committee in Howard County. She's earned her master's degree in secondary mathematics education from Johns Hopkins University and her bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering from University of Maryland, College Park. She was raised in Richmond, Virginia, and she is a longtime resident of Columbia, Maryland. And then Suzanne Haley, I met through our connection with Morgan State University. Yay, Morgan. And I am just really excited to have her on board as well. She's an experienced communicator, facilitator, and master storyteller. Suzanne guides individuals and teams towards strategic cultural shifts. Oh, that's hard. Strategic cultural shifts, which yield quantifiable results. While working in traditional ministry contacts with local, regional, national, and international faith-based organizations, she's learned to value and build community, develop leaders, and organize for collective impact in many diverse cultural settings. Her passion is to inspire and enlighten people from all walks of life to their best, most caring, responsive selves. A graduate of Morgan State University with a Bachelor of Science in Psychology, Suzanne brings transparency, authenticity to challenge out of the inside out change, which begins with personal growth and transformation. Her own life experience, historical cultural alignment, and deep sense of calling continues to energize her to do this work of compassionate truth sharing, racial healing, and cultural transformation through community building. So with that, I'd like to welcome them. They're going to be doing the topic, What the Health? So let's get started.
Myself. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Suzanne and I are privileged to really be a part of this opportunity to share with you all. And what we wanted to do is to really just give you a broad overview of the health issues within our county. And where we don't have specific data for Howard County, we will have data for Maryland, and where we don't have data specifically for Maryland, we'll have generally across the United States. And so we wanted to open up by sharing this, our understanding of UJIMA, which is one of the principles of that Malana Karinga developed years ago, and we thought it was applicable to the work that we're going to share with you today. And so he says UJIMA is UJIMA, depending on who's saying it, to build and maintain our community together and make our brothers and sisters' problems our problems, and to solve them together. And so when we think of healthcare, why isn't this going? Okay. We want to look at our demographics. And so we're going to compare the polarities, African Americans and Caucasian or white people, as they may be identified, just to give you an idea. And all the other groups fall somewhere in the middle. And so if you look at the makeup of the county, it's predominantly white or Caucasian, and then we're the next larger group. So keep that in mind when you think of percentages. So if there are 100 people in a room, 19% means that 19 of those people would be African American. This is a quick overview of the median household income, just to give you an idea of where we stand. Median means if you lined up all the people on a line and you went to the middle person, you would find out the income of that middle person if you lined them up according to income from lowest to highest. And so the median in Howard County is about $113,000. But you see where we stand in our households, it's a little bit less. We also, since we're talking about health, we went and examined the data that breaks down the most prominent leading causes of death in Howard County. And it seems the top three are cancer, heart disease, and stroke. And you're going to see that those numbers really impact our community disproportionately. And so we're going to go through the three, but we're going to examine cancer first. So the top cancer causes of cancer that impact our community's health and life or morbidity are colorectal cancer, and you remember Chadwick Boseman passed away as a result of that. Then we have prostate cancer, and then breast cancer. If you notice the difference, remember we're 20% of the county. So if you're looking at these numbers, if you look that it says about 11 men, white men, 11 men developed colorectal cancer, but of those 11, overall, there were of all the men, 8 of them were white men. And then when you look at, and I think I'm interpreting that incorrectly, but the highest number is we're about 20 out of that group. And if you notice, all of our numbers are exponentially different and out of proportion if you're thinking of us as only 19 out of 100 people, every 100 people in the county. Again, here's another example of the disproportionality. Looking at prostate cancer, I've said for years now that why do I know so many men who are dealing with diagnosis of prostate cancer? And it's not my imagination according to these numbers. Again, if you're looking at in Maryland, I think our numbers in Maryland, I think we're 30% of the population, but still outsized when you look at us compared to whites. Is another number, heart disease. look at how we stand compared to others, even the Hispanic or Latinx community. We're still out of proportion as far as heart disease is concerned. And then if we examine heart disease a little bit closer and we look at how we stand in Howard County, it looks like we're doing a lot better when it comes to outcomes in Howard County. But again, remember, we're 19%, we'll just say 20% of the county, but our numbers are still outsized compared to the number of whites in this county. Blood pressure. Obesity and diabetes are the leading causes of heart disease. Now look at these numbers. 75% of African Americans, women and men over the age of 50 have been diagnosed with high blood pressure or hypertension. We as a community have the highest blood pressure in the world. Then when we look at obesity, when we look at people from age 20 and higher, still out of proportion. 61% of the people in that age range in our community are obese if they're men, 77% if they're women. And then when it comes to children from ages 2 to 19, 20% of our children are considered obese. Remember, these are leading causes of heart disease. And then the other one, diabetes, 60%. That means 6 out of every 10 people that you know who are African American have been diagnosed with diabetes. We're twice as likely to die as a result of complications from diabetes. The next leading cause, so we've gone through cancer, which was number 1, heart disease, which was number 2, and now stroke, which is the number 3 cause of death in Howard County. When you look at us, our risk, when it comes to a first stroke, we are twice as likely to have our first stroke as opposed to a white person. And when you look at our community in death, we have the highest rate of death due to stroke. So then we think, okay, what about our vulnerability when it comes to COVID? Well, those same ailments that affect us in heart disease also contributed to our vulnerability to COVID. The extra one was asthma, because you know COVID tends to impact people's lungs, and so that of course is going to be one of the causes that would make us more vulnerable. But look at obesity, hypertension, and diabetes, how out proportioned we are to the rest. And these statistics also, it said that we are 3 times as likely to contract COVID-19, and for many reasons, and we'll talk about that later. And if you're between the ages of 35 and 64, you're 50% more likely to suffer from hypertension, 300% more likely to have kidney disease, and 60% more likely. And all of these are comparing us to the dominant community, white community. And then when we look at Howard County specifically, it doesn't look that bad until you look at the numbers a little bit more closely. If you look at it's 1,091 whites who have been confirmed to have, those are the latest numbers we could find, and 1,045 of African Americans. But when you look, it looks like, okay, we're not doing that badly, but when you do the math, we're still a little bit outside of our proportion to the community where we stand, but we are doing better, I think, than most communities. Okay, so now I want to turn this over to Suzanne. I'm the data person, and so I just wanted to give you the data. So my question is this: with all those disparities, you know, some people would say, well, what in the world is wrong with Black people? But the question really is, what happened? What happened to Black people? That's the question that we want to tackle next. So Suzanne, it's all yours.
Okay, so before I move into my portion, does anyone have any questions about anything that Jacky's already shared, any of these statistics, or any questions at all? If you do, feel free to put them in the chat.
I do want to say something. These numbers are very shocking to me. I had no idea how crazy these disparities can be. And I think that one of the things we want to do with this health committee is definitely try and make an impact and improve these numbers in our community. So thank you for pointing these out. We want to definitely have different, more talks about these specific things, especially things where, like, the highest rate of death due to stroke. So one of the things we're doing is the plant-based eating cooking classes we're going to be planning soon to try and reverse and prevent the risk of these things happening in our community. So thank you again for putting out these numbers. They're truly, truly eye-opening.
Jacky, I wanted to ask one question, and that is that do we have a way to try to understand what the effect of either poverty and uninsurance have to do with the way treatment is? Because you can have the same in any race, you can have the same illness like diabetes, but it will make a big difference if you're on a better treatment regime in one case than in another.
Yes, and Suzanne's going to get into that, but when I was driving earlier today, I heard a statistic that said, just in speaking of early childhood children, infants who are under the care of African-American children who are under the care of a white doctor are 3 times more likely to die than they are if they're under the care of an African-American. That's shocking to me. And so there are reasons, there are multiple reasons. And Suzanne's going to, kind of challenge us in that a little bit now, but we can definitely talk about that, more. We're not doctors, we're not statisticians, we're just citizens who have come across this data, and it informs the work that we do, and it falls right in line with the work that we do.
Thank you. I just want to give everybody an opportunity to breathe. Jerry led us in a meditation earlier, and sometimes when you're in the midst of just looking at these stark realities, it can be shocking to the point that it will cause you to stop really breathing. But we need you to breathe because we need you to be able to think well with us so that we can address these circumstances and situations that we find ourselves in. So with that, we'll transition to this part of our presentation. As you see, a beautiful picture of an underworld ecosystem. The question is, Howard County, this is the name of our presentation, was Howard County, what the health? So I want you to consider this. Just like these dolphins appear to be peacefully and happily cohabitating at the bottom of the sea, we, African Americans, are in a situation that we are not of. So while this particular scene appears to be picturesque, cool, peaceful, downright civil, it's still connected to the rest of the ocean. And no matter where the dolphin or the mammal is, they will eventually need to go up for air. Unlike the fish, who can swim underwater perpetually, the dolphin or the sea mammals were created with a different need, which requires for them eventually to get air. So in this case, I'm speaking metaphorically, the water becomes the stressor for the mammals. The water is the stressor. Now for us human beings in the world, and even here in Howard County, although it's peaceful, serene, cool, beautiful, civil, the stressor is what we'll call for the rest of this presentation, tenacious high effort coping. Circumstances sometimes require more tenacious high effort coping from one person than it does from another. In the case that we're discussing today, the circumstances of America, the ocean of America, require tenacious high effort coping from African American people, more so than others. We have reason to believe this is the case. We also know that this tenacious high effort coping creates an inordinate amount of stress, right? This stress sets people up for disproportionate chronic illness because the stress prematurely ages the immune system. So what we're going to do is look at the impact of stress and how it's critically relevant to this conversation as we consider African Americans in our health outcomes. All right. So we mentioned this tenacious high effort coping. This is the water of structural inequity or oppression for African American people. So there's a whole range of studies that point to the connection between this specific kind of stress and the high contributors to death in America, and even in Howard County, like high blood pressure, obesity, diabetes, and heart disease. So this same range of study indicates that weathering affects the weathering effects of this tenacious high effort coping, okay, can lead to bad health, which leads to bad outcomes: hypertension, obesity, diabetes, accelerated aging. All right, I want to talk about another concept here called allostatic load. All right, allostatic load is a measurement of the cumulative wear and tear on the body due to tenacious high effort coping. All right, it provides information that gives medical professionals some indication that this person has a high risk factor for stress-related diseases, like the ones that we've been discussing: heart disease, obesity, diabetes, and stroke. This concept of weathering is another one. And weathering is a term that was coined to describe how actually racism causes our health to worsen. That weathering, by definition, is a direct result of tenacious high effort coping, right? Remember, just having to go above and beyond to cope and deal with circumstances or an environment that was not created to accommodate you, that was in fact created to oppress you, and created to discriminate against you, that you constantly have to be on your guard, to watch your own back. You know, you don't necessarily know who to trust. The brain represents, the brain has a way to register danger. And so to be constantly in this state of alert, it affects and it ultimately has an impact. And this concept of weathering is diagnosed. One of the ways to diagnose it is that they measure the telomeres. So telomeres refers to the shortening of the human DNA sequence. And so stress causes the cells to divide more frequently and literally shortens the telomeres, the DNA sequence. And in that process of shortening the telomeres, in layman's terms, it wears the cells out. So it's a measure of premature aging of cells, and the person bearing those cells and of an early onset of disease due to chronic exposure to stressors like discrimination and tenacious high effort coping conditions. And I want you all to pardon the expression, but I kind of have to say this here. People, you often hear the term that says black don't crack, right? That's referring to just the resilience of, I guess, melanated skin. And black may not crack, but black people actually age faster. The way they recognize that is one of the ways that they identify that, determine that, is through the length of the telomeres. One last thing I want to mention in this stress segment here is this idea of visceral fat. You can't really look at a person and tell what kind of, well, maybe you can, but the visceral fat is a layer of unhealthy fat that surrounds the vital organs. And visceral fat's a little different than subcutaneous fat. That's what we're used to talking about. That's the fat that's just under the skin. Visceral fat is more lethal, it's more dangerous, more deadly, because it raises the risk of diabetes and heart disease, and it actually leads to premature death. There's a direct correlation between the occurrence of visceral fat and the ongoing exposure to discrimination. I just want to give you a moment to think about that. We talked about stress, weathering, allostatic load, telomeres, and visceral fat. All ways that we identify that person's physical body is reacting to its external social circumstances. So we need to also mention the role that bias plays in our outcomes as well. Bias, just by definition, means a strong inclination of the mind or preconceived notion about something or someone. A bias can be favorable or unfavorable. It can be in favor of, or it could be against. That's bias. I want to mention that the human brain makes meaning of things. Bias is not always bad. The human brain automatically categorizes things. And so you see something and you put it into a category quickly. And that's how we move through the world. Unless we're hyper intentional about mitigating our biases or keeping our bias in check, we're basically all making decisions, split-second decisions, day by day, moment by moment, driven by biases, you know. But then racial bias is a distinct preconceived opinion about somebody based on race. So if you look at this slide right here, we say socialization and conditioning, which is what you're exposed to, the way you're socialized, the way you're conditioned to think, the associations that you are exposed to on a regular basis, or the associations or assumptions that are reinforced, can lead to false beliefs. And false beliefs can lead to bias. Now I want to say this about false beliefs. You may say, well, what does that have to do with health? But I want to say that people have, there's research that people have done. And we have found something that makes me uncomfortable. There are a lot of actual medical professionals, teachers, a lot of people from all different racial and ethnic backgrounds who believe that things like Black people's nerve endings are less sensitive than white people's. And so therefore they experience less pain or have a higher threshold of pain or higher pain tolerance. The people that believe that Black people's skin is thicker than white skin. And so therefore it's tougher. Or that the blood of Black people or African American coagulates more quickly. This is like the residue of race science. but it's continuously, now that you're hearing these things, you see and hear these messages continuously. You have to come to one of our workshops really to get more into this. We talk about this kind of thing more and more. But bias is basically an impulse that's driven by a belief system. Now, if your beliefs are false or unexamined, that your bias can be deadly. Here's a few national outcomes that I believe are a direct result of racial bias. The type subconscious bias. I think people take an oath, to take care of people, and I think they really try to do it. But let's just listen to these outcomes. Black American patients are 22% less likely than white patients to receive pain medication. Doctors are more likely to recommend and perform unnecessary surgeries on racial and ethnic minority patients than on their white counterparts. 70% of women will have uterine fibroids, which are benign tissue masses in and around the uterus in their lifetime. But most won't have to do anything, and some may not even realize that they have them. But Black women have far more likely than white women, a much higher chance of having to get both uterine fibroids, having to remove the uterine fibroids and recommended risky surgery to remove the uterus, which, that's a hysterectomy. And it's sometimes even for women who are childbearing age. It's just worth that. I'm not a doctor and I'm not a, medical research person, but these are statistics and this is information that's available to everyone, and it gives cause for pause. When we talk about healthcare disparity in outcomes, incredibly huge difference in terms of the amount of certain treatments that are recommended to people, or lack of treatment, or lack of the giving of painkillers, and you have to ask yourself, what the health? I'm saying health, H-E-A-L-T-H. I think that's what I'm saying. Let's look at the next slide here. So we've purposely chosen not to make racism, well, we're trying our best, not to make racism the center of this presentation, but we just want to make clear the point that racism actually is hazardous to your health. Racial bias is present in medical care. Racism and racial oppression produces chronic stress and associated conditions. And the scientific community is now validating how racism plays a significant role in healthcare disparities. Racism has this a phantomish presence, no matter where you live in the ocean, in America. And studies have shown that even the most well-intentioned physician or medical professional has demonstrated that unconscious bias is impacting their care for others. Okay, next slide. So we've said all that. We've shared some shocking information, and we've shared some enlightening information. We've tried to give you a good sort of a light metaphor to couch all of this information in. But the question I'd like to ask, or Jacky and I want to pose this question to you, you organizers, you NAACP people, of which I am an NAACP person, activists, pastors, healthcare professionals, mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, sons, daughters, cousins, friends of the African American community. What can we do about this? What can we do about this? So I'd like to add, just take a moment, think about it, and just put some solutions, thoughts, ideas in the chat. We need your input for the rest of this presentation. What can we do about this. We're going to take this opportunity for a quick collective brainstorming session, because we know that we're better together and no one has all the solutions. Well, Quinton has certainly provided something, easy help. 211, quick resources, access to resources in an emergency. That's helpful. What else can we do? Keisha's saying, racism needs to be erased from the culture. Equity and equal access to health care. Thank you, Keisha.
Don't be shy. Put something in the chat, guys.
I know it's not a simple answer. Okay, we're getting some activity here. Kiana, thank you. She says more community clinics. Jerry says build trust between the medical community and African Americans. Those are good ideas. More thoughts. I know there's some thinkers on this, in this room right now. What else can we do about it? Tammy says continue to have these types of dialogues that give us information that bring awareness to these problems. Quinton says it's expensive to be poor. How can we provide better access to information?
Be poor.
I'm sorry, say what? What'd you say, Carla? Oh, she must have come off of me by accident. Yeah, he says it's expensive to be poor. It's expensive to be poor. How can we provide better access to information to our community? I know it's a question. He's asking a question. That's good. And then if you look at Quinton, he's really thinking. Any other thoughts? I think we make the assumption that in every case, Corey's saying vote. Thank you, Corey. Vote, vote, vote. Nisi saying support Black students so that we have more Black health professionals. Black people are shown to have better outcomes when they work with Black physicians. That's right. That's very true. So address social determinants of health that unfairly affect Black people. Thank you, Nisi. I just want to say this. Paul's saying, stand up and be heard when we see injustice and educate. Thank you. Keisha says information sessions like this. I agree. I just want to say this though. Let's not get stuck in the perpetual posture of receiving information, because information is information, but information in and of itself is not transformation. I also want to say this about socioeconomic healthcare disparities as it relates to socioeconomic status and education. Your income, level of education, and zip code do not always insulate you from profound healthcare disparities. In fact, sometimes the income and education level would give us indication that you're more at risk. If you think about the conversation we just had about stress, the allostatic load, weathering, shortening of telomeres, if you can imagine the high pressure that people are under living in the high pressure world of having to perform in a system that is designed to oppress you, that has a powerful impact and wear and tear on your body. Willie says, solution, stop seeing health as a sickness and pivot to health being a way of life. And Keisha's saying whole food, plant-based diets. Okay, Jacky McMillan is saying, remove the factors that contribute to racism, racist policing, maybe the most obvious, unequal educational opportunities, fair and affordable housing. Jacky, that's what we're trying to say when we talk about these fish in this environment. Okay, thank you all. Let's look at the next slide here. What we want to say, so we opened up our presentation with Ujima, all right? That's one of the Nguzo Saba that was developed by Dr. Karenga. But Ujima means collective work and responsibility, to build and maintain our community together and make our brothers and sisters' problems our problems, and to solve them together. Ahmed's making the point that in Anne Arundel and PG and Baltimore City, they have similar levels of cancer rates, but a huge income differences. That's a good point. That illustrates exactly what I was saying, Ahmed. Yeah, so in this process, we just wanted to suggest some things as well in terms of what can we do? What can we do? I'm not a doctor, you know, necessarily. I'm not a legislator. I'm a member of the NAACP, a proud member of the NAACP. And what can we do with our legacy of collective impact? Well, we can organize. We can equip community members with life-saving skills. We can disseminate youthful health and wellness information. We can build confidence for self and family medical advocacy. We can create learning environments to lift up the healing traditions of our African descendants. That's what we can do right away. We can organize for everything on this list here. There may be help available, but you don't know how to get to it. Or there may be skills that, life-saving skills, but you don't know how to obtain those skills. Even proactive skills, Keisha, as you were saying, you know, things that, health and wellness things, you know, but even beyond that, the support system of community, if you think of it, sort of this family mentality, you know, I got you kind of a demeanor that we can have as we build community. These are things that we can do. Does anyone have any questions? You can come off of the chat for a moment. If you have any questions about anything that I've said or anything that you'd like to add to what Jacky and I have presented today.
There's some questions, Susan and Jacky. So with, you know, of course, everyone utilizing their gifts and talents to help support through how you've outlined here, do you see, you know, as the lack of, I guess, information or knowing where to go or how to connect as a barrier as well, or?
Do I say, give me the question one more time, Quinton?
Do you see the lack of, I guess, knowing where information is, knowing where trustful information is, knowing how to connect and being able to get that trusted information out as a barrier?
Absolutely.
Folks?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just saying that because, you know, we have technology that, you know, we can utilize. I know I mentioned some of our texting subscriptions that we use statewide. And so we also have a texting platform that, you know, we can create keywords where folks can just text, similar that we're doing statewide with COVID. So we have MD COVID, and we can help to support to create something specifically for, you know, Howard County minority community, where it's just a texting program where information can be filtered. That's information that's, you know, health information, wellness, mental health that supports the minority community. But, you know, that's something that we can definitely help to support with. You know, that's a way that, you know, Phil could also help to connect folks with information. And it's by text, so it's sort of that less intrusive way of connecting.
Yeah, and it's a culturally sensitive way. You know, it's a culturally sensitive approach, taking into consideration that people have reason for distrust. You know, so
right.
how can we be intentional? I just want to read also, Jonathan says, another solution, educating individuals about non-traditional healthy practices like meditation. Ahmed says, National Negro Health by Booker T. Washington. This is the roadmap. Ahmed, is that a book? Let us know if that's a book. I'm interested. Any other thoughts? You can just come off of You can come off of mute and ask if you have any questions of myself or Jacky, or both of us.
There was a question in the chat earlier from Jacky McMillan. She asked, are there disparities in access to healthcare, and would universal healthcare help to reduce those disparities? For example, could one factor in the outrageously high death rate from prostate cancer to having to do with lack of early diagnosis and treatment due to the lack of access?
Absolutely. So even when you think about the suggested age range for getting your first cancer colonoscopy screening, even though our numbers, we tend to get impacted by colorectal cancer between ages 20 and 30, they only dropped the suggested first exam to 45. And so simple things like that, where we're not really considered in the numbers, you know, our health makes a difference. And so being aware and, you know, as we're saying, organized, helping people to know, disseminating helpful information. We just don't know what we don't know, you know, eating differently. I mean, it's one thing to tell people to eat well, but who can afford it when you think about the cost of good food? And where do you get access to, you know, food that is not highly processed?
Mm-hmm.
You know.
That is one of the reasons why the NAACP has the community garden, is to be able to provide chemical-free food. And you and I have worked in that garden together. So if you are not aware, the Howard County NAACP has a community garden that grows kale and collards and all kinds of different foods, okra, African red okra, all kinds of different foods that if you come and you work, you can take some home. So if you are interested in that, it's on 8000 Harriet Tubman Lane, and we're usually there at 9:30 on Saturdays in the morning and 5:30 and on Wednesdays in the evening, and we could always use more volunteers. So if that's something you're interested in, helping and getting food out that is healthy and can help reduce all of the risk of everything they talked about today, definitely come out, and I will put that information. Oh, Suzanne put the information in the chat. So thank you. But yes, I am all for getting healthy food out. We're also going to be planning having those kind of information sessions come out, because we need people to know about different ways you can eat plants, because a lot of people will look at plants and say, what is that? So we need to actually get plants to become a food in people's minds, instead of, you know, chips and burgers looking like food. We need real food.
That's a good point. And that's a good point you make, Keisha, but I want to make sure to respond to that just really quickly. We need to also be careful, though, that we don't quickly defer to the mindset that the health disparities are because of the way Black people eat, or the way Black people do life. The whole point I think that we're trying to make sure that we are illustrating here is that we are in but not of something, and as a result of our efforts to try to maintain some degree of balance, sanity, and survival in the midst of this ecosystem, which is very violent towards African American people, we don't even realize the constant toxic flow of aggressions, microaggressions, and things that we're managing. And this stuff is taking a wear and tear on our body, causing us to be less resilient and less able to bounce back, really. So when something like COVID-19, we see it coming down the road, I'm seeing COVID coming, I look over and I'm thinking, our folks are like sitting ducks with all the highest levels of what they called comorbidities and pre-existing conditions. And then people say, why? And people want to say, because Black people don't take care of themselves. Black people should exercise more. They should eat less fried foods. they should have a more healthy, I'm not trying to come down on you, Keisha, but I'm just saying like this mindset, like it's an American thing to blame the victim. And what I'm saying is that right now, it's not even about that. It's about survival for us. And I guess what we are trying to do is call us as a community to some communal solutions. The weak saying, I am strong enough for the weakest one among us. I'm going to leverage what I have so that together you survive, because without me, you won't. You're too vulnerable. You cannot handle the stressors, your socioeconomic circumstances, your work circumstances, your every little thing, all the stressors of life that you have to manage on a regular basis. That's what sets us apart. And so when we really, really pull back the cover, it's so easy to say, Black people are just unhealthy because they're the sickest, because they just are not being proactive enough. And that it's just not the case, you guys. It's not. We don't have time to really go into it more and more and more, but I want to just make note of Ahmed was trying to come off of mute. And Ahmed said that without health and until we reduce the high death rate, it will be impossible for us to have permanent success in business, property getting, in acquiring education, or to show other evidences of progress. He's quoting, and he says that he launched the National Health Improvement Week, and this is, you're talking about Ahmed W.E.B. Du Bois? Yeah, Booker T. Washington. He launched the National Health Improvement Week in 1950, later known as the National Negro Health Week. So if we can just implement W.B. Du Bois's program he was trying to put in place back then, that will possibly be very helpful. Willie says that access is a small part. As Ahmed has explained, high income African Americans have the same health challenges as lower income African Americans. Why? Because they are swimming in toxic water as well. It may be more toxic in the sections of the ocean that they find themselves in. Ahmed says that Dr. Stephen Thomas of the University of Maryland Health Equity Center would be a good guest. Also here in Howard County, we have Dr. Lisa Cooper of Johns Hopkins. Thank you, Ahmed. I hope that, Ahmed, you join this committee. I feel like you need to be a part of this committee. Willie Flowers, our Howard County president, says cortisol and stress impact life as well. Absolutely. So cortisol is it is a toxic hormone given in the doses that we need them, and it has an actual toxic impact on the human body. Ahmed is saying that I'm more than happy to arrange them. Any thoughts on COVID vaccine trials? Arlene saying, love that. Don't put all the blame on the victims. Ahmed says, yes, it was Booker T. Washington. Thank you for the invitation. You're welcome. Let's go to the next. Our time is gone, but I want to say here, thank you so much for your thinking well with us, for your contributions, for your input to this conversation. So just in closing, I want to say that we are changing the lens. Jacky, McCoy, and I started this community building movement. And what we do is we examine truth, awaken empathy, and we try to activate courageous citizenship. In the midst of doing all this, we're trying to teach people basically how to crawl into the skin of other people and see life from their perspective, so that we are compelled to use the resources and the things that we have to try to make a difference in the lives of people that don't have what we have. We also believe that people don't know what they don't know. And so we don't want to implicate people. We know that the people are not the problem. The problem is the problem. So if we can take our collective concern and put it together, we can make a difference and make an impact on the problem. I don't care how long it's been a problem. We have the ability together to make a difference. So we have these 3 workshops that we offer. 2 of them actually are being offered right now virtually in Howard County. We have optics, which deals with assumptions or biases. It's where in optics we discover the power and the impact of implicit bias and the way to counteract it. We also have Zoom Lens, which deals with history and explores the concept of race and racism and issues of bigotry and bias that have literally shaped our society, okay? Created the water that we swim in. And then we have New Lens, which talks about impact, to understand disparate outcomes and the power of narratives. This workshop today was kind of New Lens-ish. Our website is right there on changingthelens.org. It's on that slide as well. We have workshops coming up. We actually have workshops. If you go to our website, here's some of the dates coming up, and we are offering these workshops to Howard County people, NAACP folks, we are offering it to you on a pay what you can basis. We are desperate to get this information out. And so we really don't want to exclude anyone that is interested in learning more about how we got this way and how this water got to be the way it is and what we can actually do to cleanse the situation and really make, I was about to say make America great. That's but make a difference. Thank you so much for your presentation, Jacky. I mean, for your attention. Jacky, if you have anything in closing, I thank you and I'm done.
I just want to thank you for your attention. And again, the information that we shared is out there. It's spread all over the place. So it's kind of difficult to get your hands on it, you know, so you don't really, you know, disaggregated data is difficult to find because they don't want us necessarily to find it. So if you're interested, if you have any questions, we're more than happy to help, you know, you find it. We you know, we'll do whatever we can to support this effort.
Thank you, Jacky. I just want to, Nisi, why, if you don't mind coming off of mute for just a moment and telling us a little bit about social determinants of health, since you're on here with us.
Hi, I'm Nisi. I'm on the health committee as well. So when I had mentioned social determinants of health, for those of y'all who only know the basics, real quick, social determinants of health refer to the social aspects that can affect one's health. So for example, economic stability and financials, education, access to food, community and social context, healthcare, your neighborhood. So when these come into play, it's like, okay, your neighborhood, do you live in a neighborhood where you can take walks, where you can get exercise? Is it safe to walk in certain parts of the neighborhood? That's not always the case for all people. Do you have access to food? There are food deserts where you would have to travel way out of your way to even find like fresh fruit, fresh vegetables, that sort of thing. Within like your community and social context, do you live in a situation where your stress hormones might be playing up a lot more often than other people's? So do you have greater, and I think this can also be one of the things that is true for people in certain situations, but also true for everyone. So as we're seeing now, especially in the news with all of the police brutality being played out on such a large scale and so aggressively seen in the media, that causes a lot of stress. And then as a result, that causes harm to our health. And then there's like the long-term effects of that with epigenetics. And I think you were mentioning the telomere shortening. But specifically, I know Mr. Flowers wanted me to mention, I worked at shock trauma the past few years. And I think a lot of the social determinants can play into the health of patients we saw there. And I think one of the examples is we would disappointingly frequently see members of the same family coming in, or the same people even, over and over and over again. And tying that back to the social determinants of health, I think there are specific areas that can be more high risk. So gun violence is the epidemic of gun violence is a huge thing. And because of that, even if you're living your best life, doing everything you can to stay away from it, there are certain areas of Baltimore that you're just significantly more at risk. And we have seen the same people or people of the same family coming in over and over again. But then also expanding that past just your area, because I do think like a lot of these social determinants of health go beyond poverty and socioeconomic status. It can also impact you just on a racial basis, because as with COVID, I've seen a lot of, first off, doctors' responses and the way they interact with Black patients versus white patients is, and not just doctors, like all of the health professionals, it can be disappointing to see the differences. But you were also mentioning like with pain medication, Black patients are medicated a lot less. And then with COVID, and sorry, I got a little off track, but COVID specifically and the social determinants of health, things like social systems. So the stress can weaken your immune system. Things aren't caught as frequently or as quickly and as easily. If you don't have access to good food, that can also weaken your health. And then there's even smaller things like if you don't speak the same language as your doctors, or even if you do speak the same language, medical jargon can be very difficult to understand, and a lot of times doctors don't make it accessible at all. So between all of these things, there's just so many different ways social determinants of health can be very pervasive and specifically attack Black people and people of color.
Thank you, Nisi. Keisha, I'm going to turn this meeting back over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, I wish I could have a round of applause in the room, but we're over Zoom. But thank you so much. This was very informative. The comments have been amazing in the chat. If anybody would like to say thank you in the chat, please do. Let them thank them for coming out and sharing this information. It was so informative, and we really appreciate it. The Health Committee also has a survey. I had put it in the chat a while ago, but if you don't mind going ahead and taking the survey so that we can know what kind of things you're interested in learning about, what kind of things you need help with, and things that we should be focusing on in the Health Committee. That would be great. Also, if you'd like to join the Health Committee and help us put out more information like this, and do more programming and make more of an impact in the community, please go ahead and contact me, Jerry, Nisi, or Kiana, and let us know. If you don't have our information, I'm not sure how. you can find me in so many different ways. I'm so findable. So just text me or stay on the call afterwards and let us know. And Jerry, did you have any final words?
Muted.
Jerry, you're on mute. Jerry, you're on mute.
Okay. I'm having a little trouble with my battery, so I'm going to try to go through this. Are you okay? Everybody can hear me? Keisha?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So this is going to be our closing meditation. I wanted to preface it by saying that we do a once a week meditation in our congregation. As we have focused on everybody checking in on COVID-19, we found we have to end with sending everyone out with basically to think not only about themselves, but to think about their families and to think about the wider community, and in a hopeful fashion. So this closing meditation is focused on bringing the benefits of what we've learned tonight to our family, to ourselves, to our family, friends, and those we love, and to our community in Howard County and Maryland. So as we go forth from our meeting, may you take the benefits from this meeting and the work that you do, and may you be safe, may you be healthy, and may you find happiness. And for your family, friend, and those you love, may they be safe, may they be healthy, and may they find happiness. And for all of us, our community in Howard County and Maryland, may all of us be safe, may all of us be healthy, and may all of us find happiness. Namaste.
Thank you, Jerry. All right. With that, that is the end of the meeting. If you would like to stay on and talk, please feel free. And thank you all for coming. I think I sent all of you an individual thank you. I really appreciated everybody coming out tonight, so thank you. And thank you again to our speakers.
Thank you, Keisha.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Keisha.
No
Bye,
problem.
everybody.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye.